the war that reshaped our world and defined the 20th century. But how did it start, and what made it so devastating? Hey, history buffs! Welcome to a journey through history's darkest conflict, World War II. In this video, I'll take you on a whirlwind tour of the origins, key battles, turning points, and the lasting impact of this monumental war. World War II wasn't just a series of battles, it was a clash of ideologies, a struggle for survival, and a test of humanity's limits. But to truly understand its scale and significance, we must start at the very beginning. Our story kicks off in the aftermath of World War I. The Treaty of Versailles left Germany humiliated and economically crippled, paving the way for the rise of Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party. Hitler's aggressive expansionist policies and the invasion of Poland in 1939 set the stage for a global conflict unlike any other. From the beaches of Normandy to the deserts of North Africa, World War II was fought on multiple fronts, involving more than 100 million people from over 30 different countries. We'll dive deep into some of the most pivotal battles, Dunkirk, Stalingrad, Midway, and explore how these clashes turned the tide of war. But it's not just about the strategies and the generals, it's also about the human stories. The soldiers in the trenches, the civilians under bombardment, and the resistance fighters risking everything for freedom. We'll also look at the home front, how the war effort transformed industries, societies, and even technology. The development of radar, the breaking of codes, and the creation of the atomic bomb. All these innovations had far-reaching consequences, shaping the modern world in ways we still feel today. Finally, we'll reflect on the aftermath of World War II, the establishment of the United Nations, the beginning of the Cold War, and the lasting impacts on global politics and society. So buckle up and get ready for a compelling journey through one of the most catastrophic and transformative periods in human history. Together, we'll uncover the origins, navigate the battles, and grasp the profound impact of World War II. Hit that subscribe button and let's dive into the past to understand the world we live in today. Stay tuned. In the aftermath of World War I, Europe was left in turmoil. The Treaty of Versailles imposed harsh penalties on Germany, leading to widespread poverty and resentment. The harsh reparations and territorial losses fueled resentment and a desire for revenge, creating fertile ground for extremist ideologies. Enter Adolf Hitler, a charismatic yet dangerous figure who promised to restore Germany to its former glory. Through propaganda and ruthless political maneuvering, Hitler and the Nazi Party quickly rose to power. By 1933, Hitler had become Chancellor and soon after the absolute dictator of Germany. His vision for a greater Germany included the reoccupation of the Rhineland, the annexation of Austria, and the Sudetenland crisis. All bold moves that were met with little resistance from other European powers. Meanwhile, across the globe, Japan was pursuing its own aggressive expansionist policies. Driven by a need for natural resources and a desire for regional dominance, Japan invaded Manchuria in 1931 and later launched a full-scale war against China in 1937. These acts of aggression went largely unchecked, emboldening other totalitarian regimes. In Europe, the policy of appeasement adopted by Britain and France aimed to avoid another devastating conflict by conceding to some of Hitler's demands. However, this only encouraged further aggression. The Munich Agreement of 1938, which allowed Germany to annex the Sudetenland, is often seen as the pinnacle of this failed strategy. As tensions escalated, alliances began to form. The Axis powers, Germany, Italy and Japan, aligned against the Allies, which initially included Britain, France and China, and later expanded to include the Soviet Union and the United States. The stage was set, and the world was on the brink of a war that would reshape history. Stay with us as we delve deeper into the events that triggered the full-scale outbreak of World War II. From diplomatic failures to bold military gambits, we'll uncover how the world plunged into its darkest conflict yet. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more insights into the events that shaped our modern world. As the world grappled with the aftermath of World War I, the seeds of conflict were not only sown in Germany and Japan, but also in other nations that would soon fall under the shadow of authoritarian rule. The interwar period saw the rise of dictatorships across Europe and beyond, each driven by unique circumstances, but united by a common thread of exploiting national discontent. In Germany, Adolf Hitler capitalized on economic despair and social unrest to establish a totalitarian regime. Promising to restore Germany to its former glory, Hitler's brown shirts used violence and intimidation to dismantle democratic institutions. By 1934, Hitler declared himself Führer, the undisputed leader of Germany, and embarked on a campaign of aggressive expansionism. In Italy, Benito Mussolini also capitalized on economic woes and social unrest to establish a fascist regime. Promising to restore Italy to its Roman glory, Mussolini's black shirts used violence and intimidation to dismantle democratic institutions. By 1925, Mussolini declared himself Il Duce, the undisputed leader of Italy, and embarked on a campaign of aggressive expansionism, including the invasion of Ethiopia in 1935. Meanwhile, in Japan, a militaristic government rose to power, promising a return to greatness. The Japanese government pursued aggressive expansionist policies, starting with the invasion of Manchuria in 1931. Across the globe, these dictatorships shared a common reliance on propaganda, state control, and the suppression of opposition to maintain power. Their aggressive foreign policies and disdain for democratic norms contributed to an environment ripe for conflict. As we move forward, we will explore how these dictatorial regimes interacted with each other and the rest of the world, setting the stage for a global confrontation. The alliances, betrayals, and strategic moves made by these leaders would shape the course of history in ways unimaginable. Stay tuned as we continue our journey through World War II, unraveling the complex web of events and decisions that led to the outbreak of the most devastating conflict in human history. Remember to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more deep dives into the pivotal moments that changed our world. As the new authoritarian regimes solidified their power, they began to test the waters of international response through a series of early aggressions. These initial acts of defiance would serve as precursors to the full-scale conflict that was to come. In Europe, Germany's first significant move came in 1938 with the annexation of Austria. This bold move was a direct challenge to the post-World War I order. Hitler's annexation of Austria was met with little resistance from the international community. The lack of a strong response from France and Britain emboldened Hitler, convincing him that the Western powers were unwilling to enforce the treaty's terms. Around the same time, Italy pursued its imperial ambitions in Africa. Mussolini's invasion of Ethiopia in 1935 was marked by brutal tactics and widespread atrocities. The League of Nations condemned the invasion, but their sanctions were largely ineffective. The failure of international institutions to curb Italy's aggression further highlighted the weaknesses of the existing global order. In Asia, Japan's early acts of aggression were equally significant. The 1931 invasion of Manchuria marked the beginning of Japan's expansionist policies. By establishing the puppet state of Manchukuo, Japan demonstrated its willingness to defy international norms. The League of Nations condemned the invasion, prompting Japan to withdraw from the organization altogether. This marked a clear signal that Japan would not be constrained by international opinion. These early aggressions were not isolated incidents, but part of a broader strategy by the Axis powers to test the resolve of the international community. The weak and fragmented responses from the world's democracies only served to embolden these dictatorships further. As we delve deeper into the events leading up to World War II, we'll see how these early aggressions set the stage for even more audacious acts of expansion and conquest. The world was on the brink of a conflict that would reshape the global landscape forever. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we explore the alliances and betrayals that paved the way for the outbreak of World War II. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on our journey through history's most pivotal moments. Text on screen. The invasion of Poland, World War II begins. Voiceover prompt. On September 1st, 1939, the world was thrust into chaos. Germany, under Adolf Hitler, launched a brutal invasion of Poland. This act of aggression marked the official beginning of World War II. The Blitzkrieg tactics, a new form of warfare characterized by rapid, overwhelming force, caught Poland off guard and led to its swift defeat. Visual prompt animated maps showing Germany's invasion routes into Poland, transitioning to images of Polish cities being bombed, and then footage of British and French leaders in urgent meetings. Voiceover prompt. In response, Britain and France declared war on Germany on September 3, 1939. Despite their declarations, immediate military aid to Poland was limited. The international community was now fully aware that the era of appeasement was over, and the world was plunged into a conflict that would last 6 long years. Visual prompt footage of British and French leaders making their war declarations, soldiers mobilizing, and civilians reacting to the news. Background music, the intense rhythmic orchestral track underscores the gravity and urgency of the situation, symbolizing the onset of a global conflict. Voiceover prompt. The invasion of Poland was not just the beginning of a war, it was the start of a series of events that would lead to untold destruction and change the course of history forever. The world was now at war, and the stakes had never been higher. Visual prompt. Dramatic visuals of the Polish countryside in flames, soldiers marching and ships setting sail, leading into the next segment. Voiceover prompt. Join us in the next episode as we delve into the alliances and betrayals that shaped the early years of World War II. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on our journey through history's most pivotal moments. Text on screen for our next episode, Alliances and Betrayals, the Early Years of World War II. Text on screen. The Battle of Britain and the Blitz, Defending the Skies. Narrator. With the fall of France, Britain stood firm against the might of Nazi Germany. Hitler's next move was to subdue the British Isles through relentless bombing campaigns. Thus began the Battle of Britain, a pivotal conflict that would determine the future of Europe. Visual prompt animated maps showing the proximity of Britain to occupied France, transitioning to archival footage of British Spitfires and Hurricanes taking to the skies. Narrator. From July to October 1940, the skies over Britain were the primary battleground. The Luftwaffe, Germany's air force, launched relentless attacks on British airfields, radar stations and cities. The goal was to destroy the Royal Air Force, RAF, and pave the way for Operation Sea Lion, the planned invasion of Britain. Visual prompt footage of dogfights in the sky, anti-aircraft guns firing, and radar operators tracking incoming raids. Narrator. Despite being outnumbered, the RAF fought valiantly. The introduction of radar technology played a crucial role, allowing the British to effectively coordinate their defences. The bravery and skill of the pilots, famously referred to as the few, turned the tide in Britain's favour. Visual prompt close-up images of RAF pilots preparing for missions, radar screens and aerial combat footage. Narrator. Frustrated by the RAF's resilience, Hitler shifted his strategy. On September 7, 1940, the Luftwaffe began targeting civilian areas, marking the start of the Blitz. For 57 consecutive nights, London was bombed, followed by attacks on other major cities like Coventry, Liverpool and Birmingham. Visual prompt, dramatic visuals of London during the Blitz, with buildings ablaze, civilians seeking shelter in the underground and firefighters battling the infernos. Narrator. The Blitz was intended to break British morale, but it had the opposite effect. The British people displayed remarkable resilience, coming together in a spirit of defiance and solidarity. The phrase, "keep calm and carry on," became emblematic of their resolve. Visual prompt footage of everyday life during the Blitz, including people emerging from shelters, children being evacuated to the countryside, and community efforts to rebuild. Narrator. By May 1941, the Luftwaffe had suffered significant losses and shifted its focus to the Eastern Front. The Battle of Britain and the Blitz had ended, but they marked a turning point in the war. Britain had withstood the onslaught, proving that Nazi Germany could be resisted under the leadership of Winston Churchill. Visual prompt. Scenes of damaged but resilient British cities, citizens repairing their homes, and RAF pilots being celebrated as heroes. Narrator. The courage and determination displayed during this period laid the groundwork for future Allied victories. The Battle of Britain was not just a military triumph, it was a testament to the unbreakable spirit of a nation under siege. Text on screen. Join us in the next episode as we explore the Blitzkrieg and the fall of France. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on our journey through history's most pivotal moments. Background music, tense, dramatic, and suspenseful music underscores the narrative, emphasizing the high stakes and the resilience of the British people. Text on screen. Blitzkrieg in Europe, the fall of France. Following the swift and brutal invasion of Poland, Germany turned its attention westward. In the spring of 1940, Hitler's forces unleashed the full might of their Blitzkrieg tactics on Western Europe. This was a new era of warfare, fast, relentless, and devastating. Animated maps show German invasion routes through the Low Countries and into France, transitioning to black and white footage of tanks rolling through the countryside and Stuka dive bombers in action. On May 10, 1940, Germany invaded Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg. The strategy was to bypass the heavily fortified Maginot Line and strike at France's weaker northern defences. The Allies were caught off guard once again, and the German forces advanced with astonishing speed. Footage of German troops crossing rivers on pontoons, paratroopers dropping from the skies, and the evacuation of civilians from towns and cities. The German war machine seemed unstoppable. Within weeks, the Low Countries had fallen, and German forces were pushing deep into France. The Allies scrambled to mount a defence, but the speed and coordination of the Blitzkrieg left them in disarray. Scenes of French and British soldiers in frantic retreat, interspersed with images of destroyed infrastructure and refugees fleeing the conflict. By late May, the situation was dire. The British Expeditionary Force and French troops were encircled at Dunkirk. In a desperate bid for survival, a massive evacuation was launched, rescuing over 330,000 soldiers across the English Channel. The miracle of Dunkirk would become a symbol of hope amid the chaos. Archival footage of the Dunkirk evacuation, with boats of all sizes ferrying soldiers to safety, and scenes of men waiting on the beaches under threat of German air attacks. Despite the evacuation, France was left vulnerable. On June 14, 1940, German troops entered Paris. Just days later, France signed an armistice, leading to the occupation of the northern part of the country and the establishment of the Vichy regime in the south. Images of German soldiers marching through Paris and the somber faces of French civilians watching the occupation unfold. The fall of France shocked the world. In just 6 weeks, one of Europe's strongest nations had been brought to its knees. The Blitzkrieg had proven devastatingly effective, and the future of Europe looked bleak under the shadow of Nazi domination. Dramatic visuals of occupied Paris, French flags being replaced by swastikas, and the somber mood of the populace. Join us in the next episode as we explore the Battle of Britain, the next crucial conflict in the struggle against Nazi tyranny. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on our journey through history's most pivotal moments. Text on screen. Next episode, the Battle of Britain, defending the skies. Text on screen, the Eastern Front and North Africa. Following the fall of France, the conflict spread far beyond Western Europe. Hitler's ambitions knew no bounds, and soon the war would engulf the vast expanses of the Soviet Union and the deserts of North Africa. In June 1941, Germany launched Operation Barbarossa, the largest military invasion in history. Animated maps show the massive scale of the Eastern Front, with arrows representing German advances into Soviet territory. Over 3 million Axis troops stormed across the border, aiming to crush the Soviet Union with sheer force and speed. Initial victories were swift and brutal, with entire Soviet armies encircled and annihilated. Images of German soldiers advancing through the Soviet countryside, tanks rolling across fields, and Soviet prisoners of war. The German Blitzkrieg tactics were once again devastatingly effective, leading to rapid advances and mass destruction. But the Soviet Union was vast and its people resilient. As the harsh winter set in, the German advance stalled. Footage of soldiers struggling through snow and ice, makeshift defences, and Soviet counterattacks. The Battle of Moscow marked the first major defeat for Hitler's forces, a turning point that would change the course of the war. Meanwhile, another front was heating up in North Africa. Animated maps showed the movements of Axis and Allied forces across the desert. The Italian forces, along with German reinforcements under General Erwin Rommel, sought to seize control of the strategically crucial Suez Canal and Middle Eastern oil fields. Footage of tanks and troops maneuvering through the desert, battles in the harsh terrain, and the iconic image of Rommel, the Desert Fox. The North African campaign was a series of back-and-forth battles, with both sides gaining and losing ground in the vast, unforgiving landscape. In November 1942, the Allies launched Operation Torch, a massive amphibious invasion of French North Africa. Images of Allied troops landing on beaches, fierce battles, and the eventual Axis retreat. This marked the beginning of the end for Axis forces in North Africa, culminating in the surrender of over 250,000 troops in May 1943. The Eastern Front and the North African campaign showcased the global scale of World War II and the immense human cost of the conflict. Each front presented unique challenges and horrors, but they were all part of the same devastating struggle for control and survival. Join us in the next episode as we delve into the Battle of Britain, a fight for the very skies above Europe. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on our journey through history's most pivotal moments. Text on screen next episode, The Battle of Britain, Defending the Skies. As the conflict raged across Europe, another storm was brewing across the Pacific. On a quiet Sunday morning, December 7th, 1941, the world would witness an event that would forever alter the course of history. Text on screen: Pearl Harbor. The United States joins the war. At 7:55 a.m., the serene skies over Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, were shattered by the drone of approaching aircraft. Without warning, waves of Japanese fighters, bombers, and torpedo planes descended upon the unsuspecting US Pacific Fleet. Footage of Japanese planes in formation, bombs falling, and explosions engulfing battleships. The attack was swift and devastating. In just under 2 hours, over 2,400 Americans were killed. Nearly 1,200 wounded, and the Pacific Fleet lay in ruins. 8 battleships were damaged, with 4 sunk. Hundreds of aircraft were destroyed on the ground. Images of the USS Arizona exploding, sailors desperately trying to save their comrades, and the aftermath of the attack. This unprovoked assault galvanized a nation. On December 8, 1941, President Franklin D. Roosevelt addressed Congress, delivering his famous speech that would echo through the annals of history. Audio clip of FDR. Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy, the United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan. The very next day, the United States declared war on Japan, marking its official entry into World War II. The sleeping giant had been awakened, and the full might of American industry and military power would soon be felt across the globe. Images of American factories ramping up production, soldiers enlisting, and fleets of ships and aircraft being built. The attack on Pearl Harbor not only unified the American people, but also forged a powerful alliance with the Allied forces. As the United States mobilized for war, it brought new hope to those already fighting against Axis tyranny. Footage of American troops preparing for deployment, Allied leaders meeting, and the iconic image of the American flag being raised at Iwo Jima. Pearl Harbor was a turning point, a catalyst that transformed the conflict into a truly global war. The stage was now set for a series of battles and campaigns that would decide the fate of nations and the future of the world. Join us in the next episode as we explore the relentless Pacific theater and the fierce battles that raged across the islands and seas. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to continue our journey through history's most pivotal moments. Text on screen: next episode, The Pacific Theater, Island Hopping to Victory. As the United States entered the war, The conflict's intensity reached new heights. The Axis powers, once seemingly unstoppable, now faced formidable resistance on multiple fronts. In this scene, we delve into three pivotal battles that turned the tide of World War II in favor of the Allies: Stalingrad, El Alamein, and Midway. Images of the Eastern Front, desert warfare, and naval battles. The Battle of Stalingrad, fought between August 1942 and February 1943, was one of the deadliest confrontations in history. The German advance into the Soviet Union had been relentless, but the city of Stalingrad became a symbol of Soviet resistance. The brutal urban warfare, characterized by fierce house-to-house fighting, took a devastating toll on both sides. Footage of the ruins of Stalingrad, Soviet troops fighting amidst the debris, and winter setting in. The Soviet Red Army, under the command of General Zhukov, launched a counter-offensive that encircled and trapped the German Sixth Army. After months of grueling combat, the German forces, weakened by starvation and the harsh winter, finally surrendered. The victory at Stalingrad marked a significant turning point as the Soviet Union began to push back the German invaders. Transition to the North African desert. Meanwhile, in North Africa, the Battle of El Alamein in October 1942 became a critical turning point in the Western Desert Campaign. The British Eighth Army, led by General Montgomery, faced off against Field Marshal Rommel's Afrika Korps. The battle was fierce, with both sides enduring harsh desert conditions and relentless combat. Images of tanks and infantry clashing in the desert, sandstorms and strategic maps. Montgomery's well-executed strategy and superior numbers eventually overwhelmed Rommel's forces. The victory at El Alamein halted the Axis advance in North Africa and set the stage for the Allied invasion of Italy. Winston Churchill famously remarked, "Before Alamein we never had a victory. After Alamein we never had a defeat." Transition to the Pacific Ocean. Across the Pacific, the Battle of Midway in June 1942 was a decisive naval engagement that shifted the balance of power. The Japanese Imperial Navy, seeking to eliminate the United States as a strategic power, launched an ambitious plan to capture Midway Atoll. However, American codebreakers had deciphered Japanese plans, giving the US Navy a crucial advantage. Footage of aircraft carriers, naval battles, and planes taking off from decks. In a stunning display of naval strategy and aerial combat, the US Navy under Admirals Nimitz, Spruance, and Fletcher inflicted a crippling blow to the Japanese fleet. 4 Japanese aircraft carriers were sunk, along with hundreds of planes and experienced pilots. The victory at Midway shifted the momentum in the Pacific, allowing the Allies to take the offensive. Images of jubilant American sailors, damaged Japanese ships, and the vast Pacific Ocean. These 3 battles, Stalingrad, El Alamein, and Midway, were turning points that marked the beginning of the Axis retreat. They demonstrated the resilience and determination of the Allied forces, paving the way for future victories and ultimately leading to the downfall of the Axis powers. Join us in the next episode as we explore the relentless Pacific theatre and the fierce battles that raged across the islands and seas. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to continue our journey through history's most pivotal moments. Text on screen turning the tide: Stalingrad, El Alamein, and Midway. On June 6, 1944, the Allies launched D-Day in Normandy, France. This marked the start of the liberation of Europe from Nazi occupation. This monumental event marked the beginning of the end for Nazi Germany and the liberation of Europe. Images of Allied forces preparing for the invasion, soldiers boarding landing crafts, and the vast armada of ships crossing the English Channel. Under the command of General Dwight D. Eisenhower, the Allied forces launched Operation Overlord. The invasion fleet consisted of over 5,000 ships and landing craft, carrying more than 156,000 troops from the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, and other Allied nations. This massive force aimed to breach Hitler's formidable Atlantic Wall and establish a foothold in Nazi-occupied France. Footage of the Normandy beaches, soldiers storming the shore under heavy fire, and aerial views of the coastline. The landings took place on 5 beaches: Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juneau, and Sword. The operation faced fierce resistance, particularly on Omaha Beach, where American forces encountered intense German fortifications and machine gun fire. Despite the heavy casualties, the bravery and determination of the Allied soldiers prevailed, and they managed to secure the beaches by the end of the day. Transition to images of paratroopers dropping behind enemy lines, securing key positions, and footage of the French countryside. In addition to the beach landings, airborne divisions played a crucial role in the success of D-Day. Paratroopers from the 82nd and 101st Airborne Divisions were dropped behind enemy lines to capture vital bridges and disrupt German communications. Their efforts helped to create confusion and prevent German reinforcements from reaching the beaches. Footage of Allied troops advancing through Normandy, liberating towns and villages, and being greeted by jubilant French civilians. Once the beachheads were secured, the Allies began their push inland. The Battle of Normandy raged for several weeks, with fierce fighting in the hedgerows and towns of northern France. The liberation of cities such as Caen and Cherbourg marked significant milestones in the campaign. The Allied forces' relentless advance eventually led to the liberation of Paris on August 25, 1944. Images of liberated Paris, celebrations in the streets, and the iconic scenes of the Eiffel Tower draped in Allied flags. The success of D-Day and the subsequent liberation of France were pivotal in breaking the grip of Nazi Germany in Western Europe. This monumental effort demonstrated the power of unity and collaboration among the Allied nations, setting the stage for the final push into Germany and the ultimate defeat of the Axis powers. Join us in the next episode as we explore the final stages of World War II, including the Battle of the Bulge, the fall of Berlin, and the horrors uncovered in the concentration camps. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to continue our journey through history's most pivotal moments. Text on screen: D-Day, the liberation of Europe begins. With the successful landings in Normandy and the liberation of Paris, the Allies continued their relentless push into Nazi-occupied Europe. The final stages of World War II were marked by 2 pivotal events: the fall of Berlin and Japan's surrender. Images of Allied troops crossing the Rhine, battling through the ruins of German cities and closing in on Berlin. In early 1945, Allied forces crossed the Rhine River, breaching Germany's last major line of defense. The Soviet Union's Red Army advanced from the east, and the combined pressure from both fronts signaled the imminent collapse of Nazi Germany. The Battle of Berlin began in April 1945, with intense urban combat as Soviet forces encircled the city. Footage of Soviet tanks rolling into Berlin, soldiers fighting street by street, and the devastation of the city. The fall of Berlin was a brutal and bloody battle, with the city reduced to rubble. Adolf Hitler, realizing the end was near, took his own life on April 30th, 1945, in his bunker. The city's defenders, now leaderless and overwhelmed, surrendered to the Soviet forces on May 2nd, 1945. Images of German soldiers surrendering, Soviet flags raised over the Reichstag, and celebrations in the streets of Allied cities. Just days later, on May 8, 1945, Germany officially surrendered, marking Victory in Europe Day, or VE Day. This historic moment signaled the end of the war in Europe, bringing relief and joy to millions who had endured years of conflict and suffering. Transition to the Pacific Theater with footage of intense battles on Pacific Islands, American forces advancing, and Japanese cities. While Europe celebrated, the war in the Pacific continued. The United States fought a grueling campaign across the Pacific Islands, inching closer to Japan. The fierce battles of Iwo Jima and Okinawa demonstrated the Japanese determination to fight to the last man, raising fears of a prolonged and bloody invasion of the Japanese mainland. Images of the Manhattan Project, scientists working on the atomic bomb, and the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. In a bid to end the war swiftly and avoid further massive casualties, the United States made a fateful decision. On August 6, 1945, an atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima. followed by a second bomb on Nagasaki 3 days later. The unprecedented destruction and loss of life shocked the world and forced Japan to reconsider its position. Footage of the Japanese surrender ceremony aboard the USS Missouri and images of the war-torn world beginning to rebuild. On August 15, 1945, Japan announced its surrender, and on September 2, 1945, the formal surrender ceremony took place aboard the USS Missouri in Tokyo Bay. This marked the official end of World War II, a conflict that had engulfed the globe and reshaped the course of history. Images of war memorials, veterans commemorating the fallen, and a world striving for peace. The end of World War II brought a sense of relief and hope for a better future. The world had witnessed unimaginable horrors, but it had also seen extraordinary acts of courage, resilience, and unity. As we remember those who sacrificed so much, we honor their legacy by striving for peace and understanding. Thank you for joining us on this journey through history's darkest conflict and its ultimate resolution. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to continue exploring the pivotal moments that have shaped our world.